But before we get to the questions, hi everyone, and welcome to the Understanding the Impacts of COVID-19 breakout room. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Janice Fleming. I'm Human Resources and Contracts Officer with JEDI, and I will let Laurie do a brief introduction of herself.
Hi everyone, I'm Laurie Nash. I'm the Communications Intern at JEDI.
My own connection to COVID-19's impact, certainly as they apply to the workplace, is mainly as part of the team at JEDI that was tasked with our organization's response to the pandemic. I don't think that Laurie will mind if I speak for both of us.
No.
Just to say that neither of us really considers ourselves to be an expert on COVID-19 or the economy or any of those things. And very likely we have the same questions going forward as many of you do. But the idea today is to have a conversation, sharing our experiences and thoughts and approaches, and maybe just take some comfort in the fact that we're all facing many of the same challenges. Duncan is a tough act to follow with his anecdotes and his slides. But as he said, the Shirk report couldn't possibly have anticipated the additional challenges that COVID-19 would bring, but obviously it is going to be a big part of how things are shaped going forward. So like I said, considering the impacts of COVID-19 that we've all experienced is a huge subject that we can't possibly cover entirely in the time that we have, but I'll start off by mentioning some things that I thought of just to get us going. There were the immediate impacts, of course, starting with a province-wide lockdown that happened with little to no time to prepare, and something that people couldn't have imagined until it happened. And that led, obviously, to the fear and anxiety of becoming ill and, what was going to happen to our jobs as a result of what was happening around us. Like all workplaces, JEDI was tasked with the development and implementation of an operational plan. And that's something that we couldn't have anticipated until it happened. And we didn't have a lot of time to do it. And of course, it was to allow a safe return to work whenever the lockdown was lifted. For example, staggered staff work schedules to minimize numbers in the office, and the offices needed to be retrofitted for a return to work, both for the safety reasons like our signage, the way our work cubicles were set up, and as well for upgrading technologies for what was obviously going to be a more virtual existence. And even though it was worth every effort and every penny to keep people safe and working effectively, just generally speaking, not just JEDI, but how much has it cost organizations in both time and money? And not all organizations could really afford it. We've had to adapt quickly to the world of virtual meetings and events, and it's a very different experience for many of us. The delivery of JEDI's programs also became largely virtual, and I think time is really going to tell what lasting impacts, whether good or bad, this has had on program effectiveness and client experience. Now, those are some impacts that weren't too surprising when you think about the pandemic and how it started and how we all had to react to it. But there are other impacts that nobody really anticipated, and I'm sure there are lots more to come, that also affect many of us and can add to already high stress levels. And you think of things from supply shortages and increased costs like lumber. I mean, I would never have anticipated that. To impacts on the real estate market. If you're thinking about moving or you have moved during the pandemic, I mean, selling your house is okay, but have you tried to buy a house lately? Oh, not so good. The pandemic has also emphasized vulnerabilities in the workplace countrywide. For example, at organizations like JEDI, we're very lucky to have a good paid sick day program, but many workplaces don't or can't provide enough paid sick time, and some don't provide any. There's an overwhelming number of statistics and facts about COVID-19 impacts to the workforce and workplace, and many of them are causes for ongoing concern. For example, I read something the other day that said some projections are showing that Canada's economy in general won't even start to recover until sometime in 2022. And that's a long time of uncertainty for organizations, for businesses, and for people. A recent Forbes article said, and I quote, "COVID-19 has become an accelerator for one of the greatest workplace transformations of our lifetime," end quote. The pandemic has certainly been a change precipitator. And one of our experiences is it has led to people making life decisions, for example, deciding to retire sooner or to pursue dreams like owning their own business, which is great for people's lifestyles. But it's resulted in employees moving on unexpectedly, and that's definitely impacted staffing. But there are positive notes. A silver lining, I think, if we can even use that expression during the pandemic, is that workplaces were already moving towards greater flexibility in working arrangements and work-life balance, but progress was pretty slow. The pandemic has really forced change much faster, and it's likely that many organizations won't entirely go back to pre-COVID arrangements. And that's something that I think we would discuss more on day 2 on Thursday when we're talking about where we're going and planning. All indications are that working from home, at least some of the time, is set to be our new normal. But it can be a double-edged sword. There are many aspects of working from home that certainly our staff are positive about, but people can start to feel isolated and disengaged if workplaces don't have strategies in place to make sure that those things are addressed. Given all the stresses and worries that COVID-19 has brought, there are deeper discussions about workplace wellness programs, what that means in a pandemic and a post-pandemic world, how to implement effective programs. And that's another positive development. But again, that's something that maybe could be explored more on Thursday. I feel like I'm really just scratching the surface here, but the idea of this breakout room isn't to listen to me talk. We're very much looking forward to hearing about your experiences, your thoughts, your concerns. So maybe now we can move on to the guiding questions on the slide and start the conversation. So I guess the most obvious question to throw out there is, I've talked a little bit about how it's affected JEDI and some more general points, but how did COVID-19 impact your business and workplace? everybody's always reluctant to be the first one to jump in there.
Has her hand up.
Maybe I can go. Hello?
Hi, Alex.
Can you hear me? I
Yes.
said some of the stuff that you described certainly applied to us as well, because when we went to a lockdown, because we have essential services, we had to make sure that essential services were carried out, like such things as policing, our social workers, the health department, income assistance, all of these had to be planned so that they deliver the services, and the albeit in some cases is remotely. Like for example, our financial operations, we had to ensure that we're able to access all of our we'll say reporting, our finance software and everything else remotely. I think that and then we were only open, we'll say, for such things as handing out purchase orders for food vouchers, for example, and we had to ensure that all of our staff had the PPEs, that we had a venue that they were able to use for handing them out, and then we had to bring in security to ensure that everybody was social distancing, wearing masks, and everything. It was an awesome owner's task, really, to be going through all of that. And then, of course, we have like the complete shutdown of businesses. For example, the Development Corporation has video lottery machines, lounges. They have restaurants, and all of them had to be shut down. The essential services, of course, was the fuel stop, and we had to go through and make sure there was what do you call those things, barriers that were established, plexiglass barriers. Our staff had to be properly trained, and of course, we had to pay our staff a little bit extra for exposing themselves, because we're a unionized organization here in the community. And so we have to ensure that union and management are meeting to do all that. The challenges in April, May, and June was sufficient industry, and we had to spend thousands of dollars with the seafood processing plant to ensure that the workers were protected. There, for example, in April, they were processing snow crab, and there's 250 workers that we had to bring in plexiglass, what do you call it, almost like little cubicles that they work under. And the other things that had to be done, of course, was the fishing vessels themselves. They had to also go through all of that. So it was quite the task. And for longest time during the lockdown, our office was only functioning maybe 1 day, 2 days a week, and just for the essential workers, because non-essential workers were sent home. And some of them didn't have the capacity to do the work from home if they were, because of the unreliable what they call it, internet service. They were not able to access some of the stuff remotely either if they were had that. The wellness center non-essential workers were sent home. And it was down to just, we'll say, the nurses, the nurse practitioners, that they were not able to bring in anybody in the building. They had to do that remotely. They had to phone people at the phone, and they talked over the phone for assessment and everything. And that's the same thing, I think, today. Like, for example, if all of my medical appointments with my doctor have been by phone or by Zoom, and that has not ended yet, and and I don't know when it's going to start. In terms of cost, I think it was a very expensive proposition, but thank goodness that Indigenous Services Canada or Indian Affairs was able to provide us with money to retrofit the businesses, and also to provide assistance for us here in our buildings to make sure that the washing stations were located, temperature checks were done, and forced serve return. And daycare operations were seized as well, and just only, I think, in the recent past that we're able to do all that. So it's still I think they call it the new normal is coming up. I know some people now, like here, we're able to, all of us have been able to return to our job sites. The school is operational, albeit there's COVID restrictions still. When they, like we have, I think something like 10 or 11 classrooms, and for recess time, for them to go out, they have to go out as a bubble. So that we'll say kindergarten has to go out a certain time. Nobody else can be doing the same thing. There's no extracurricular activities. And so, and some of the kids who remotely suffered a lot because they were not able to learn, again, because of not a good connection for the internet and everything else. I think that some businesses didn't lose. For example, the Petro-Canada on the highway, they seem to sell more cigarettes and they were able to sell more gas. And so that they didn't lose any money. However, on the development corporation side, since there was no lounges open, no bingos going on, no VLTs, and also the food service, the restaurants, they've all lost quite a bit of money during that time. So just as a start off,
I know it's a lot. I mean, like I say, it's just scratching the surface of how it affected various organizations or communities or businesses. I think, Dawn, you had put your hand up.
Yeah, if I can get all my buttons pushed here. I work with Working New Brunswick, and I oversee the contracts for the GED program and the digital literacy. And we, had a lot of hiccups in trying to get, the operational plans together for those organizations. And I deal with two great ones, Central Valley Adult Learning Association and Western Valley Adult Learning Association. And those employees were, very, very helpful. We worked well together to develop that. But there's so many things to consider. Alex mentioned the internet or lack of internet. And also when the daycares were closed, there was a lot of people that had to stay home. So we weren't able to attend class. And even we had a lot of classes that were operating remotely. So they either, if they had access to online, then they were working on materials online. But if not, the teachers were photocopying, material to send home and things like that. So, but if you have a family at home that you're trying to look after and homeschool and all of that, it was very stressful for the parents and the children as well, and the teachers. So yeah, a lot of extra stress and anxiety.
Oh yeah, for sure. Even the operational plans, I mean, it was definitely not a one size fits all. No. So yeah, that was a challenge.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yep.
And we have to deal with some things like federal jurisdiction and provincial jurisdiction, RS. And when it came to, I think it was, some of them had bottled water had to be brought in because you couldn't drink from the taps for some reason. We have community water supply, but the Health Canada said we had to provide bottled water. So then when I started, and the other thing was that some of the sanitizing substances weren't, like, they were located, they were provided by the province, and they didn't meet the standards for Health Canada. Yeah. And so we had to take all of those out and buy new ones that that were approved by Health Canada. And same thing in the social work program, that we had the same problem. And then we had a problem getting the proper PPEs and the mask, and then there was a lot of misunderstanding about community mask and the proper fit and everything else. Even today, we have, we'll say, inspectors coming in from the province, and our members are saying, you have no business here because we're a federal jurisdiction. So they call the feds, and they squeal on us, and the feds will come in, and so it's interesting. And,
yes,
yeah,
and things change so quickly. What was the way to do it yesterday is now changed, and you might go back, but as we learn more information, things definitely have to evolve as you go, and be ready for change, and just try to deal with it the best that you can, and support each other. But it's certainly been trying.
Hello, Donna. Are you muted?
There you go. Okay. Yes, I'd like to say something too. Can you hear me?
Yep, can hear you now.
Yep,
yeah.
now.
You cut out a little bit, but can hear you now.
I think what I'd like to comment on is more of the second component, but I guess it's all intertwined. And I just want to tell you that, especially for Native people, it really affected us in really, really strongly at first, especially. We are very family oriented. We're very community oriented. And so at the beginning, when we couldn't go see our grandchildren, we couldn't go visit our children, it was really, really tough on us because we're always intermingling. And the social aspect of our culture, socializing, is so important. But the part that made it even more extremely difficult was when somebody passed away in our community. Yeah. We would, usually what we would do, and still to this day, when somebody passes away, people will go to that family, they'll go cry with them, hug them, and then immediately they jump into action. They'll start cleaning the house, people will start bringing food, maybe somebody will light the sacred fire and keep it going. And we don't leave the family because we know that someday we're going to need their help as well. So we didn't have that. We couldn't have that. And it was really hard, no closure. So I remember after started, there were 3 people that died in my community. One older person, then our local priest even died, who everybody had become friends with. And then a young man died of suicide. He was only 17. It was so traumatic. And we were so afraid that, I was so afraid that it would have a domino effect. Didn't know what to do. But anyway, we eventually went to the outside of that. Only 5 people were allowed, family members, only 5. How do you separate a family, Went to a funeral home, and even a funeral home is not our way. But we stood outside, my children and I, we sang the honor song. We socially distanced, we lit a smudge. So the family really appreciated that. And what I did, I had to go online, and I told people, tomorrow, such and such a time, bring out your smudge or your rosary, whichever way you pray, it doesn't matter. And let's all get together and pray for the 3 individuals that passed away just recently. So we did that. And I didn't know I've never done it like this before. I have to go out on a limb and try that. But a lot of people were on there as we went live, and actually it was taped. So it really, like I said, we're so family oriented, we're so community oriented that it's like a trauma. Really, it's trauma. And so one of the things that I've seen, that I've realized, is that when you experience trauma of any kind, you have to voice that trauma. Because at first it was really hard, and then it kind of calmed down a little bit, where people were able to connect a little bit more, the bubble got bigger. But if you hold that trauma inside and you're not able to express it, well, if the next trauma comes along, you just keep packing all these things, and it's going to come out as sideways anger, whatever, nightmares, whatever. And so I started doing online talking circles. Yeah, and so I find that even elders, like a couple of elders, I usually get invited to AFN conferences, and they've never had them in a while because of COVID. And some elders called me. They were feeling lonely. They were feeling isolated. and asked if we could have a talking circle across the land. I said, yes, absolutely. So that's what we did, not knowing if this would be beneficial, but it did, because it still makes the people feel like we're gathering. We need that. We need to know that we're not alone. We need to know that someone else cares. We need to know that someone else is in the same situation as us. And so it's a way of healing for us. For example, residential school survivors, they couldn't speak about their experiences as adults. They just kept holding it in. Finally, when they got together within a talking circle, to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, through Justice Marie St. Clair, and they brought them together from across the land. And even though they had different experiences, they went to different residential schools, their experiences were basically the same. It was abuse. So when they got them together, finding a circle from across the land, smudge was lit, and an elder was asked to conduct the ceremony, they felt safe, knowing that what's shared in the circle stayed in the circle, that nobody's going to go out and say what you're sharing. And so that was very, very healing. And for them, it began the healing process. So I see this happening with this as well. We also, in our way, it's about the balance. When something is so difficult or so serious, Eagle teaches us, when that eagle flies with two wings, that balance, that you have to balance it with something more lighthearted or fun or play. You can't just work and be serious all the time. And so my hats off to Jedi when they had that movie, when they did the movie thing outside. To me, that was so amazing. Everybody was following the COVID rules, but to me, it represented that balance, because everybody in their own individual way was traumatized by this, everybody. And so all the employees needed to do something fun. So hats off to Alex and all of Jedi, whoever planned this, because it was so amazing. And I was able to bring whoever, so I brought my best friend. We've been best friends since we were 13, Grace Brooks. And we sat there, we felt so spoiled. They brought us our food that we had pre-ordered. Then they brought us popcorn, and I don't know, it just felt so good. So I believe that for the balance of COVID, we have to balance it with something. We have to, for the, not so much the clinical part, but to balance it, the social aspect, fun, something, so maybe put our thinking hats on and see what we can come up with, because we're adapting. And I want to tell you, one of our greatest survival tools as the indigenous people of this land, the first people, has been our ability to adapt. Right, Alex? You put an Olno in the woods or whatever, and they don't have this or they don't have that. They'll find a way to make that fire. They'll find a way to make a shelter. They'll find a way to make a meal, no matter what. We're very adaptable. That's our strength, still to this day.
I know, we're still adapting our different cultures and different languages and everything else.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It's been I tell people our greatest survival tool has been our ability to adapt and our humor. If it wasn't for our humor, it helped us through everything, through assimilation.
Donna, I think that what you were describing was our 25th anniversary of Jedi's existence. And
yes,
it happened during the pandemic period.
Yes.
So we had to, we had the sunrise, I think, ceremony that occurred in the banks of the St. John River on the north side of Fredericton. And we could only invite so many people, if you recall. Yes. And we were so wide apart, I think, that we had a big circle. But it really worked out well. It really worked out well, very, very well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry for interrupting you, but I thought that
no, you're just adding.
May not be aware of the celebration that we had at that time.
I was there. Imelda and I were doing a ceremony.
That's right, yeah.
Yes, it was wonderful. So they're adapting. They're adapting to change, like truly adapting, and not being afraid to go beyond those boundaries. We're circle people. We're not so much that square, right? So so that's what I just thought I would add, and I'm so proud of Jedi for just really having that incredible insight and foresight to be able to know what's needed. Just so proud of you guys.
You did it.
Thanks for that. Yeah. So time is really ticking down, and it's amazing how much you can talk about this subject. But just in the interest of time, maybe if we go on to, and we've already touched on other parts of the questions, but I'm just interested in hearing what changes people and organizations had to make to address the whole COVID-19. There's the physical, there's policies, there's, just trying to support employees or co-workers or anything like that. And I'm looking at you, Diane, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but I mean, you did deliver JEDI's incubator program virtually, and you had to adapt to that really quickly. So I'd be really interested in hearing your insights.
Actually, I had my hand up. I was ready to go. I don't know how much time is left, but I'll be brief. Just thinking about this, how much time is left?
I believe we're 2:40.
So there is a little bit of time. Yeah. I think we just got a message from Gwen saying we're going back earlier, but
oh, did we?
Yeah, I think so. Okay. But yeah, don't worry so much about the time, Diane. It's just good to get these points out.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know me, I work on contracts with JEDI to deliver incubator and accelerator programs for Indigenous entrepreneurs in New Brunswick. And prior to COVID, we were in Fredericton, and the classrooms are in Fredericton, and all the students come in from all across the province for a face-to-face class time. And they're taken away from their families and they're taken out of their communities, which is a good and a bad thing, because it's hard for them to leave their families behind. But at the same time, they're very focused. When they come to Fredericton and they're in the classroom, we've got their undivided attention for a couple of days every week. Now I'll cut to the post-COVID. We did have to adapt our programs, and we had to make sure that everybody had technology that worked. And we adapted, and like JEDI and us coordinated the whole technology piece in the sense that they're all using Chromebooks, which are really easy to use. There's very little learning curve. Everything's cloud-based. So the technology piece really was addressed pretty easily. And also from an internet point of view, we were concerned that a lot of people would have problems with the internet. And for the most part, we've been really lucky. We've had some spotty services on Campobello Island, or, where's another bad spot? I could tell you all the bad spots in New Brunswick. But for the most part, we didn't lose any participants. Everybody participated every day, and the technology worked out. So, from that perspective, it was great. We did have to adapt all of our teaching to be online. And it is hard for people to sit in front of a computer for 8 hours a day. So we did try to break things up a little bit, and we got a lot of feedback from our surveys as well. Do the tough topics in the morning and then maybe have the guest speakers and stuff come in the afternoon. We also, and Dawn is here, Elder Dawn is here. We did try to also bring in the whole spiritual and support that's needed in a program like this when people are really working hard. They need an outlet and they need those talking circles. So Donna was a big part of our program, and feeling, having that feeling of being connected and feeling like you're part of something. And it's not just for the people in the class, it's for us too. It's really hard not coming to New Brunswick and getting to know everyone face to face. We spend a lot of time with the participants, and it's hard doing it on a computer. But I'll tell you what, next powwow season, man, we're going to be, Frank and I are going to do the powwow trail and just come out and hopefully have a chance to meet everyone face to face.
We're all inviting them. All of us want you guys to come.
Yeah. So from a participant's point of view, the feedback we're getting is that they actually enjoyed, a lot of them really enjoyed doing it virtually because they didn't have to leave their families.
Yeah, or home.
Yeah. And they could, it was just so much more convenient for them. They would have liked probably a hybrid, where they could have come in, done a few days in the classroom and then still be able to participate from home. And I was just looking at the list of people that we've graduated over the last couple of years, and many of them have been impacted by COVID. So just from their perspective, again, we've had some businesses have to delay their opening because the price of construction, to open a beauty salon, or we have one company that wants to open a car repair shop. The costs have more than tripled or quadrupled on being able to build a building.
Yes.
Or to do leasehold improvements. So a lot of them are just kind of trying to figure out ways to maybe start with a tent. You know, maybe I can just buy a tent and I can change tires, as opposed to having a full-blown auto body shop. So people are trying to find creative ways around it. It's really impacting people who normally sell a lot of items during the, on a powwow trail. We've noted that almost every single one of our companies that's graduated, and the people that have graduated, need online sales. Having an online store, having a website is critical to them. Yeah. So, you know, trying to build that more into the program for them has become sort of a high area of focus for me. And for all of you who want to attend our graduation, I'm putting in a plug here. The Art Accelerator is going to have a graduation event on the 22nd of June, and we're creating a marketplace for them so that they can sell their products online. And we know that the powwow trail isn't really happening again this year. So we're going to give them a place to sell their products. And honestly, there needs to be a virtual powwow trail to replace the face-to-face. I know that there's been virtual powwows, but not the marketplaces, not the vendor booths. We've had people in food, in tourism, in the entertainment space who basically had to stall their plans. We've had some who were they're doing catering instead of opening a restaurant. We've had people who've actually had to put their business completely on hold because you can't have 10,000 people in an entertainment facility. So, you know, we've got some businesses that are just sitting in the starting blocks, waiting for this to be behind us.
We're almost there.
All right. And then again, just from the spiritual side, the social side, it was hard for everybody starting out doing things virtually. But we did become a family. Donna, you can attest to that, right? We did become a family. We did have our talking circles. We had our downtime, you know, where we weren't teaching, and we had an opportunity to get to know each other and have virtual hugs. So I would say the programs from a participant perspective, I think they were good with the online learning, but we have to adapt in the sense that it's hard to sit in front of a computer for 8 hours a day for anybody. And again, they're going to have some challenges starting up a business like a restaurant in this environment. It's just, first of all, you know, all the COVID restrictions, and then just the costs now associated with opening up a new business are a deterrent. But no one's given up on their dreams. I don't know if there's any questions for me, but it's been a heck of a learning experience and very rewarding.
Thank you, Diane.
Thanks, Diane. I don't know, Laurie, are we just about out of time? I'm a bit confused now because they've changed the schedule.
Yeah, I thought I saw Kayla put a 10-minute warning, but I haven't seen a 5-minute warning yet. So I don't know.
Okay. So maybe we'll try and just put the two last thoughts together if anybody wants to jump in on what was the hardest. And again, we've already touched on these anyway, but what's the hardest thing to change, to adapt to, and where are we now? If anybody would like to jump in on either or both of those. How did your employees feel about the restrictions and the mitigation measures, just out of interest?
You mean, well, some employees that were sent home without pay didn't like it very much.
No.
Yeah, and thank God, I guess they got CERB assistance and a number of other things. But I think that the certainly the ones that were providing the service directly, like for example, not pumping gas, but in the service industry, they were very, very unhappy about working for a minimum wage and putting themselves at risk, so that some of that had to be accommodated by giving them sort of like, not much as a hazard pay, but top up their wages a little bit. But the problem is that now that it's not wide open, but we're less restricted, and bring their we'll say wages down, it's not it's not sitting very well for them. And but I guess it has to be done. And the other thing, I think that it's like last year there wasn't any activities here. Normally there's work opportunities where summer students are hired. It was limited that could be done last year, as well that they provide some summer employment for members of the community for construction, home building, for example, and the general cleanup of the community once a year. And so those things didn't take place last year. And of course, people had sort of lost money as a result. And so that was a big impact in the community.
Alex, can I ask a question? What does it look like for this summer for student programs and for hiring?
They're not too bad, but the council right now, because of they were using own source revenue, and the own source revenue is down. Like certainly although the price of some like lobster prices and the snow crab prices have gone up, it's just that it's a shortened fishing season because of weather conditions, and so that the opportunity to do that this year again is not going to be there as it was before. And I think that like for example, I'm hearing that the powwow here in the community has been postponed or canceled because we're still in this what do you call it, emergency, although I'm hearing the premier saying maybe by the summer it'll be lifted. But our powwow was usually in August, and so I think that that's not going to go on. The other big thing in our community, as Don has mentioned, has been we had a number of deaths in our community, and during the COVID in like March, April, May, June last year, is that there was no funerals, and a lot of the cremations took place for burial at a later date. And I know that we had a young man that died, and the grandparents had looked after the young man, and so they wanted the old Mi'kmaq sort of funeral, like it's almost like an Irish funeral, but they couldn't do it. I mean, the funeral home says we can't do anything because we're restricted, and if we do it, there's a heavy fine for us to do it. And so it's really difficult to work with them. I know that they asked the chief if they could overrule, and so it's really, like Madonna said, it was very difficult. And I think that closure wasn't happening, but it's starting to open up here, and they're talking about allowing you, Donna, to come here. I think probably by this fall. They're going to open up, I think, the Atlantic bubble soon. But the way that Halifax has been going, or Nova Scotia has been going, it's been delayed. Yeah. But I think somebody said the COVID is not in our rear view mirror yet. And even if restrictions are lifted, some of us will still have to wear probably masks and do social distancing because we don't have that herd immunity yet. Something came up on my screen. What is it anyway?
Yeah, I think our time is up.
I think Dawn wanted to say something, so do you want to take the final seconds?
No, I'm just coughing.
Oh, sorry, I meant Dawn, not Dawn.
Oh,
so she was
I was just
unmuted.
going to say a lot of frontline staff were very nervous. You know,
Oh, yes.
to have to continue, especially to be teaching in front of other people and just not knowing where they had been, right? You can control your own situation, but you can't control the others that are around you. So that was very nerve-wracking for them. Yeah.
In the vaccinations, only 50% of those eligible in our community got fully vaccinated. So we didn't reach the herd immunity that was the targeted. And I think the hesitancy, some people seem to feel that the government is the big brothers trying to put nano chips in your body to keep track of you. Some people reminded them, if you have a cell phone, you are tracked already.
Well, and on that note, I think that would definitely be something for discussion on Thursday. So thanks everyone for your great input. And we hope you're able to join us on Thursday when we'll be actually talking about moving forward from COVID-19, you know, envisioning what the new normal is going to look like. So yeah, so hopefully you'll be able to join us on Thursday.